Ed Helms was born January 24th, 1974 in Atlanta, Georgia, as Edward Parker Helms. He's obviously a well-known actor. We're all very familiar with his work in the Hangover trilogy, in The Office, which you have some, by the way, some real huge cult Office fans. Several members have texted me about how that is their favorite series of all time. So I'm sure we're going to hear about that, questions about that. And of course, Vacation and other shows on that I know Mr. Helms will talk about. Today, we're so blessed that he is using his bully pulpit, his celebrity status, to talk about the importance of voting issues, HR 1, the voting for the People Act, and I know student loans is another issue you've been very active on, Mr. Helms. And being from Georgia, I know this is particularly timely, given your roots. So with that, want to give you the floor, and thank you so much for meeting with us in Future Forum today.
Thanks, Darren. Really appreciate it. Lovely introduction. And I just want to start by saying what a privilege it is for me to talk to all of you. I really appreciate you having me on today. It's a little bit early in the morning for me. I'm in California. It's 8:30, which doesn't seem that early, but I have a 3-year-old who was screaming all night long. So forgive me if I slip into gibberish and or baby talk at some point. I'll try to stay awake and engaged here. But no, I'm really excited to be here. So I'm just going to share a few things that I'm feeling particularly fired up and or pissed off about right now. And then I'm going to open it up to a kind of an ask me anything type format. We'll have a bit more discussion from there. So let's just dive right in. Where to start? First, I actually want to address something that I've been kind of sensing out in the ether a little bit. A lot of my friends and colleagues who care about the world and care about democracy. There's a slow creep of complacency that we're all vulnerable to. Now, if you're on this call, you're not a complacent person on these issues, but I do want to just flag something, which is that it can kind of sneak up on you unconsciously. When we see a lot of progress happening, we see, the American Rescue Plan, we see the Biden-Harris administration doing exciting things, and we're seeing COVID vaccines, herd immunity approaching, all these, there's good feelings. There's a tendency, I think, unconsciously to just enjoy it a lot, which is great, but then maybe also take our foot off the gas a little bit. And we just can't do that. There's so much work to be done. You guys are all right in the middle of it, and I applaud you so much for that. And I just encourage you to stay vigilant with your own motivation and your own engagement on this stuff. We have to recharge ourselves every now and then. Of course, you got to just take care of yourselves. And how do you get kind of fired up if you're feeling a little bit down or you're feeling a little bit out of the loop or whatever? And I tend to focus on what's pissing me off. That gets me fired right back up. I just get right back into it. So what is pissing me off right now? That's what I want to talk about. There are a lot of things that piss me off. But I was trying to think of sort of an organizing principle. Is there something that these things that make me angry about politics in the world? Is there something that kind of unifies these things and that they all have in common? And I realized that for the most part there's kind of a rubric under which all this fits, and that's cheating. I just hate cheating. You can't cheat. It's not fair. Cheating is so annoying. Is that the right word? That's not a strong enough word. Infuriating, right? It's so soul crushing when you see the people that you've entrusted to make huge decisions about your country, your government, your livelihood, when these people are cheating. And there's obviously plenty of there's a lot to complain about on Capitol Hill. There are people doing terrible things, coming up with terrible policies and so forth. that's one thing, but it's the cheating part that really frustrates me right now. And I do want to acknowledge, of course, that there are a lot of politicians on this call that are doing great work, and I'm not lashing out at you. What I'm lashing out at is our structural things, a system that makes cheating easy and or in some cases required. Right? There are situations where almost like the Soviet era arms race, where if you don't cheat, you're going to get left behind. And so there are systemic issues that just make cheating not only available, but really make it something necessary. And that's terrible. So I'm not really going out on a limb here that I hate cheating and that I think cheating's terrible, but let me get a little more specific. Politicians cheat in all kinds of ways, but there's three ways I just want to focus on real quickly: gerrymandering, dark money, and voter suppression. Now let's take a quick look at each one. Gerrymandering, we all know what that is. Imagine how terrible a football game would be if the winner of the coin toss got to immediately redraw the football field. You'd make your own end zone tiny. You'd make your opponent's end zone huge. It would be the most boring game ever, and it would just be fundamentally unfair. This is, of course, ubiquitous, and this is one of those things I was talking about that's like required cheating, because you can't. When one side is egregiously doing this, the other side has to try to level the playing field by playing by these same broken rules. And that's what they are. They're broken rules. Gerrymandering should not be allowed. Number two, dark money. Of course, the 2010 Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, enabled vast amounts of dark, untraceable money into our political system. In the past decade, dark money groups have donated over $1 billion in secret money to candidates and campaigns. That is terrifying. This is not money that's going to, extra campaign lapel pins or yard signs. This is money that's going directly into one thing, and that's influence. And that means that a lot of people have a lot more say in how this government works than most other people. And the only difference between those two groups of people is that one group is insanely rich and they get what they want. Not cool. I don't like that. Again, not going out on a limb here, but third thing I mentioned, voter suppression. This one hits a little close to home for me, quite literally, because I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. As a proud Georgian, I am absolutely horrified by what's going on down there. These laws are unjust, and we know this because the foundation on which they're justified is false. That foundation, of course, is the mythical need for enhanced voting security. Well, guess what? Voting security was really good in Georgia in 2020. So what is it really? And we all know the answer. It's that traditionally marginalized communities, particularly communities of color, voted in record numbers. And guess what? Republicans lost. And so instead of licking their wounds and taking a hard look in the mirror and saying, how can we better address the needs of these voters and maybe actually earn their votes, they simply said, how can we just eliminate these voters? And that's not right. That's cheating, not okay. And it's a particularly gross type of cheating that actually dehumanizes people. And that is, it's just horrific and egregious. It's really bad in Georgia, obviously, but it's actually growing. It's a growing crisis all over the country. We're seeing these laws pop up in Texas and elsewhere, and it just needs to stop. So let's take a deep breath for a second. I'm going to shift focus for a second from what's pissing me off to what's actually got me kind of excited, and that is HR 1, the For the People Act. It's the most sweeping package of voting, ethics, and campaign finance reforms since Watergate, and it's a beautiful thing. Quick breakdown, it ends gerrymandering, reduces the influence of big money, increases oversight and accountability, secures and modernizes our elections. It ensures politicians work for voters and not special interests. In other words, it directly addresses these things that are currently pissing me off. And there are a lot of really important fights going on at the state level, and that's really critical. But this is this particular bill on the federal level is so it's a sledgehammer on all of these issues. And it immediately fixes a lot of the state level issues. It simply makes our democracy better. And that's why I feel like HR 1 is really the fight of our generation. It's an opportunity that may not come around again for a very, very long time. And the price of losing this fight, it's just too great. So I guess I just want to, be a cheerleader and really rally and not let the cynicism that I know sort of creeps through the halls of the Capitol and all over DC that kind of like, well, we're not going to get there. It's just too hard. These things, cynicism is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe, if you suspect or believe that something's not possible, then you're going to be part of you're going to be part of the force that's making it not possible. There's a great phrase I love, whether you believe or you can or you can't, either way, you're right. I don't know who said that. I think, I don't want to take credit for it, but if you want to give me credit for it, I'll take it. But it's so true. It's on the micro level in our lives, little things in our lives, or on the macro level, large movements, things that we want to accomplish. We have to believe that these things are possible in order to make them be possible. Now, let me give you one more sort of context for this to think about. Ask yourselves, what are the kinds of issues that you really care about right now? What are the things that you're passionate about that's got you fired up? And I'm talking more on more specific issues like the environment, social justice, mass incarceration, for-profit prisons, farm subsidies, healthcare, the opioid crisis, poverty, minimum wage, police reform, homelessness, LGBTQ issues, whatever the thing is that you're most passionate about, ask yourself, why isn't there more movement on my issue, on the thing that really matters to me? And it's because of these systemic issues. It's because of these, it's because the gears of Congress are locked. And so if one of these other more targeted issues is your passion, use that passion as leverage into this larger systemic change, because the thing that you care about, it's not going to move forward unless this larger systemic fix occurs. The system's broken. I feel like a broken record a little bit. Sorry about that. I do want to take a quick moment to shine a light on a group that I work with called Represent Us. Represent Us. The website is represent.us, and they're an organization that's doing really remarkable work on all of this anti-corruption effort. And you should really check out their website and learn a lot more about them. That's about all I kind of wanted to get off my chest. Thanks for letting me rant for a few minutes. And at this point, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, literally any question at all.
Thank you, Ed, for your wisdom. I don't think anybody thought it was rants as much as dropping some knowledge, and you're speaking to a lot of folks who not only agree, but this will also be forwarded out to the many young people who we work with across the nation. And that's a really important role that you're playing. I see in order of who signed on, both Brendan Boyle, Sharice Davids, Katie Porter. So we're going to pivot to each of them in a moment. I just had one question. You mentioned already from Georgia and your thoughts on that. We've seen corporate America start getting more involved in this, and the film and television industry is pretty big now in Georgia. How do you think they've been responding so far to the voter suppression bill? Because I know there's been some movement there.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of very sort of passionate responses. There've been the boycotts have come up. I think that is largely considered now, after a little more reflection, to not be the best move, just because it hurts local workers, particularly in an industry that's bringing, generally speaking, a progressive industry, and it's, these jobs are supporting people in Georgia that are just doing great work. And so boycotts aren't quite the answer, but I do think you're seeing at the corporate level a lot more I don't know if courage is the right word, because it's almost like this is just such a baseline right thing to do, to speak out on these things. But I think that I'd like to see the entertainment industry do more. I'd like to see executives at the highest levels speak out more passionately and organize more on these issues. But I am also proud to be a part of an industry that generally takes a stand on these things.
Thanks so much. We're going to pivot to Rep. Boyle, followed by Rep. Davids, Porter. I see Rep. Kilmer on the line too, for any question that you may have. Rep. Boyle, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Darren, and great to see you, meet you, Ed. I'm a proud Pennsylvanian, so I have to say, one corporate PAC I totally support is the Dunder Mifflin PAC. Generous me throughout my career. Despite that, I am a co-sponsor of HR1, and obviously we've already voted on it in the House. By the way, I was just texting this morning with my fellow Philadelphian, Kate Flannery, and she says hello. So this is kind of like a weird coincidence this morning.
You're getting a Dunder Mifflin overload.
I know, yeah, happily. But so something that I've talked about with a few friends of mine who come from your profession and who feel are coming from a similar perspective as you on these issues, and frankly, as me and my colleagues were on this. I'm curious what process you have to go through, because obviously, you've been acting for a while, and you've obviously, I imagine, have had these views, for some period of time. Clearly, a very thoughtful person. What's the process you have to go through when you say, all right, you know what? I'm going to risk something to come out and speak publicly about these, because I imagine it has to be, and I really respect what you're doing, because I acknowledge it has to be quite a risk. I mean, the famous Michael Jordan quote that Republicans buy sneakers too. So I'm just curious, kind of internally, what prompted you to say, you know what, I might be pissing people off by being outspoken about the disgrace that's happening in Georgia now with the voter suppression laws and all the other issues that you talked about. I'm just internally, are there people, agent you have to talk to? I mean, I'm just curious if you kind of pull that back and let us know, what process you went through. And whatever it is, I am very glad and appreciate you lending your voice publicly to these issues.
Well, thanks for the question. I think a lot of people assume that that celebrities and movie stars that they're sort of like in a cocoon, encased by handlers and assistants and agents and publicists and all these things. And there
Likewise.
I think
like the same. No, people have the same assumption about us too.
Right. So much so that oftentimes I think people are just flabbergasted when they hear a celebrity just speak their mind or speak from their heart, and because it's incongruous with like all the sort of patter that goes on a talk show or promoting a movie or whatever. But I can demystify that a little bit. I mean, most there are assistants and agents and publicists and things, but I think different people sort of deal with that in different ways. And some, like, I see it as more of a sort of kind of support system for my career rather than a kind of like something to rely on for my persona or my message or anything like that. So, for me, it just came down to, I grew up in a fairly progressive, politically engaged home. And my dad was a Georgia Democrat and really active on Andy Young's mayoral campaign in Atlanta, and lots of other things. And I just remember, for him, it was such a default setting to care and to just be engaged. And so in a way, I sort of feel this, I think he felt an obligation to the world that I inherited somehow. That's like, and I don't mean to say like my obligation is to fix the world. It's just to be a kind of, it's just to call balls and strikes as I see them, and to kind of approach this stuff with as much integrity as I can, and to speak from my heart. And I think when you see things going on that are wrong, it's just hard not to say something. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, thank you, Rep Boyle. Next, we're going to turn to Rep Davids, followed by Rep Porter, if she's still on, followed by Rep Kilmer, and I now see Rep Underwood on too. So we'll continue in that order. Rep Davids, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. Morning. I'm just curious, I guess, to piggyback on what Brendan was saying is just trying to figure out ways to, pull back the curtain in some sense on the ways that people can get engaged and that sort of thing. And I think what Brendan said about, people assume that members don't have like just kind of a regular life going on as well. And I guess I'm curious the ways that you have been able to break that down a little bit, and maybe talk about ways that from your perspective that members, the Future Forum is like for younger members. I don't know how long I'll be able to stay in it. I don't remember what the age cutoff is, but if there's a way for us from your perspective to just start to really engage people more. I think in Citizens United and a number of other groups that have been working on HR1 are doing some of that. We're seeing lots of other folks out there as well, but I think it would just be helpful for us to hear how you've been able to demystify, pull back the curtain, help people understand that literally this is our government, and we get to do with it whatever we can gather enough people to make happen. So just be curious for your perspective on that.
Well, I think it comes down to kind of just trying to do your homework and talk to as many people as you can and read as much as you can and learn. And I'm still learning. I have a lot to learn, but I love to sit down with people that challenge me and try to, poke holes in what I'm saying or thinking. And I think that makes you a stronger advocate for whatever you're passionate about. And so that's at the very base level, it's just engage with the literature that's out there. And then when it comes to the next level of like, well, okay, how does that translate into action? I have found a lot of great leadership out there in organizations like the one I mentioned, Represent Us, which is all about anti-corruption. They have drafted their own bill, the Anti-Corruption Act, that addresses so much more than HR 1. I mean, HR 1 is really just a jumping off point. There are so many other things to be talking about, term limits, ranked choice voting, all these other opportunities to kind of bake in more integrity to our government processes. Anyway, Represent Us is a place that I've personally turned to learn a lot more, and also to find strategies, whether it's social media posts and engagements, or events that I've done with them where I talk to people. I think it's finding organizations that really speak to your passions, and then diving in and just being humble and available.
Thanks so much, Ed. Next, we're going to turn to Rep Porter, if she's still on the line.
She left.
Okay, we'll pivot next to Rep Kilmer. The floor is yours.
Thanks, and thanks for being with us. I'm sorry I hopped on late, but I really appreciate, one, that you're engaging on these issues related to democracy reform, and two, I appreciate the framing of trying to have a system that's fair. I've visited every nook and cranny in my district. I've held town halls and been on ferry docks and visited senior centers. And you know what I've never heard a single constituent say? I have never heard one say, it would be great if it would be easier for politicians to cheat or to break campaign finance rules. And,
I lost.
Did we lose you? All right, we're going to pivot to Rep Underwood and then go back to Rep Kilmer. Rep Underwood? Okay.
She just took a call.
Okay. We do have a question that staff had generated that I thought would be a fun one, because you have a lot of office fans on the line. Ed, how do you think the office would have covered remote working, with a lot of offices now in the remote working space? How do you think that would have been addressed in the show?
Wow, that is an awesome question, and it definitely gets the creative juices flowing. Wow, I can only. I think you would probably see. I feel like the show would probably focus on the cost of isolation that I think a lot of us have become familiar with, like what's happening to Dwight Schrute when he's locked in his apartment by himself for months on end. How does that affect his already unstable psyche? And same for all the characters. Andy Bernard, of course, barely stable. Yeah, that's really fun to think about. What would Creed be doing? What would Pam be? What would Aaron be doing? This is a great. Yeah, we might need to just fire up The Office again just to go down this road.
Maybe a reunion episode for charity, right? Anyway,
I don't know.
on.
I think it's a long shot, but.
Well, that was one of our talented staff's questions. We're going to turn back to Rep Kilmer, who I think we're seeing you're ready to go. So, Derek, the floor is yours.
Oh, you bet. And I was not meaning to talk at length. I'm sorry, Rayburn building Wi-Fi cut me off. But I just want to raise that issue around the Federal Election Commission, because people don't know about it and people don't care about it, but they should, right? Because we have the agency that was literally designed to be the referee has left the field. they used to deadlock a decade ago. They deadlock on 40% of cases. On 4% of cases in front of the FEC. In the last year, a couple years ago, they deadlocked on over 40% of the cases, meaning like no one's enforcing the rules, right? This is just sort of a basic sort of fairness issue. And I guess I raised this because earlier today, I had a interview with a reporter from the New York Times about HR 1, and he asked about this provision related to the FEC, which, by the way, just as you'll appreciate the connection, the way we started working on this was a guy named Trevor Potter, who was a Republican appointee to the Federal Election Commission. He was also the attorney for Stephen Colbert's super PAC, People for a Better Tomorrow. And he raised this issue about how broken it was, which is the last time the Federal Election Commission got any attention, right? And so I just share this with you since, to your credit, you're using, your position and the megaphone that you have to talk about some of these issues. One of the ones that's really broken is this issue around just having a referee on the field.
Amen.
I guess to turn that into a question, I should just say, don't you agree? And then you can leave it.
I love that. Yes. Yes, of course. I believe in referees. I believe in good referees. I believe in this gets into the larger question of like regulation as a concept, right? Regulation is necessary because we're greedy bastards, and self-interest is often a very destructive force, and so that's why we just need the right guardrails and the right regulation, whether it's in the sort of economic space or the electoral space. That's not to say we need like onerous overregulation, but what you're speaking to is the need to address the high likelihood that relying only on self-interest will mess things up.
Yeah. Amen.
Right?
Yeah. Thanks again for being with us.
We're going to pivot now. Do we have any other representatives on the phone who didn't get to ask a question?
This is Sharice. I didn't have another question. I just wanted to apologize to Derek. I did not mean to nod as hard as I did when you said Rayburn cut you off for talking for too long. I apologize.
Derek, if you may recall, when I was giving my speech to run for chair, I got cut off in the supposedly forward-thinking tech conference, which is why I have a direct connection now in Rayburn to not have that embarrassment ever again.
Which building has the best Wi-Fi?
Longworth isn't so bad, right?
Who?
Longworth isn't so bad for the Wi-Fi. I never had issues over there.
Well, this is why I was late, because the Wi-Fi, and I messaged my LD and said, can you ask the IT department why the Wi-Fi sucks? And did they read the TPS memo? Okay.
Okay, last question. If the office had Wi-Fi or better internet, do you think that would have had an effect? Would there be Wi-Fi episodes that you think you all would be able to riff off of if you have these sorts of issues that we still have in the United States Congress?
Yeah, I can tell you this: if there was better Wi-Fi on the set of the office, you'd have a lot of cast members a little more spaced out, a little more forgetting lines more often, because most of the time when we were sitting there in the background on our computers, we're on the internet just snooping around, reading sports statistics or the news or whatever. And if we had good internet and could actually like watch videos on set, I think it might grind production to a halt. As for in the world of Dunder Mifflin, I think it would make the already incredibly inefficient office of Dunder Mifflin incrementally more efficient, but still insanely inefficient.
Well, I think we all agree as we all get back to the office in person, there'll be more of those synergies again, like you all did in that amazing show. Ed, I want to give you the last word before we pivot onward, and just thank you again for taking the time. We're going to be sending this out to the local, to our press in our districts and a lot of the millennial geared press outlets after this to amplify this exchange today. But please, the last word.
Well, I just want to reiterate two things that I said earlier. One was, fight the slow creep of complacency that might just be seeping in without you even realizing it. Sometimes optimism, which is wonderful, can give us a false sense of security. That there's so much work to be done. You're all doing it. You're all kicking ass. Just stay in the fight and keep yourself motivated. And the other thing is, I forgot the other thing.
Well, you had 3 great points: gerrymandering, dark money, and voter suppression, which I made sure to write down. And those are things we're going to continue to work on to have reforms through HR 1 for our For the People Act. So I believe that was your second point.
Sure.
If
yeah,
I may
that
be
was
so
my second.
bold.
Thank you, Darren. That is exactly
I was taking
what
notes.
I meant to say.
You had a good pitch, so I took notes to make sure we had it. Well, thank you, Ed. Oh, please continue.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for having me and giving me this opportunity to reflect with you guys. And thanks for the great questions.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. And thank